the little delay, I am here with Luigi Ricciardiello, which is the chair of the National Societies Committee of the UEG, but last but not least is an expert in colorectal cancer and hereditary colon cancer, and with a huge experience abroad on research. So here we are to address the career tips for the PhD students, and basically we are expecting for your questions, even the more the better, and all that you did not dare to ask.
We'll see. Good afternoon. Very pleased to be here.
Okay, I will start myself.
Yeah. Yes.
How to assure a smooth transition, from being a PhD student and being under a boss, and creating your own lab and being you the boss?
Okay, so this is a very important question. I think when you are in the PhD program, you have to start focusing, of course, in one topic, and you have to think about that. That topic is something that you want to build knowledge, and of course your own career, your own academic career. This is actually something that you have to work very hard for. But one of the main things that I suggest to my PhD students is, first of all, you have to have a very strong knowledge of your field. You have to have made a very strong network with other researchers who are very interested and are prominent in your field. And the other thing that I think it works, at least it worked for me when I was working in the United States, is to start helping your mentor writing grants. So in order to have a path of independency, basically you need to be able to provide sustainability for your own research and your own group. And in terms of making your own group, you have to be being able to attract funds and making sure that you have sustainability not only for yourself but for your technician that you are going to appoint and your postdocs. So I had a huge lessons because I helped my mentor and previous professor. His name is Rick Boland. He's in the United States. He's now retired, but he has been a very prominent figure in the field of prevention of colorectal cancer and molecular genetics of colorectal cancer. The molecular and genetics of colorectal cancer. Now, what I did with him was helping him writing an R1 grant. So when I returned to Italy, of course, I was appointed as a faculty, and I had to have enough funds to sustain myself, and that is when I started to write grants, and I was awarded these grants. But to do so, you need to have data. So you need to be very proactive, productive. You have to write papers in possibly highly ranked journals, not just looking at the impact factors, but the importance of the journals in the field, which sometimes doesn't go exactly with the impact factor, but
that's nice. Sorry, can you go through this particular topic? What is the difference between a high impact factor journal and a good journal?
No, okay, so don't get me wrong. The high impact factor journal is usually in the top, quartile per, specific area.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, an important story. When I was I was at the University of California, San Diego, and I just started working in Rick Boland's lab, and a super bright Korean postdoc came to the lab. His name is Dong Kyun Chan. He's now a faculty at Samsung University in Seoul. And he had an idea. He wanted to measure, for example, the level of proteins of the DNA mismatch repair system and how this would impact, for example, the development of different settings of Lynch syndrome. And he ended up writing a paper and submitting the paper to Journal of Biological Chemistry. Now, Journal of Biological Chemistry is one of the most read journals in the field, of course, of biochemistry, but it has a huge impact in terms of understanding mechanisms, cellular mechanisms that are important for diseases. Unfortunately, the journal is published basically every week, and so you have many papers. The impact factor is low, but it doesn't mean that it's not a very important journal. This is one of the most important journals in the field, and that paper has been cited, I don't know, 200 times or something like that. So, and it has changed also the way people look at the disease and look at the the protein profile of the disease.
Okay, we have a question from the Facebook chat. When is the ideal time point to start a PhD?
Okay, you have to be young enough, to be honest.
And Ayat, it's better to have it before or after your clinical training.
Okay.
And even because there are some countries in which you cannot do it in between.
Yes. So, well, it depends also. Some countries have like very long PhD programs, like 5 years. Some other countries have like 6 years, or countries like in Italy, for example, is 3 years. No, I think it's you have to think about that. If you want to do a PhD program, you need to devote a lot of time, a lot of energy, and it's basically your bread and butter is going to be for the entire time of the program. So, in my opinion, if you exit from med school and if you can enter a PhD program, it's much better. You have a lot of energies to devote. I'm very much, I don't like the idea of having clinical training overlapping the PhD program, because in my opinion, you're not focused enough in one of the two things. So you cannot split your brain in two things at the same time that are very time demanding and time consuming. So I like the idea of having someone undergoing the PhD program first and then finishing, getting the PhD and then starting the clinical training, but no overlap during either the clinical training or the PhD program, because you need to be very much focused on what you do.
Okay, another question. Nowadays, having an academic career is not popular in some regions in Europe, and most junior doctors are happy to be just residents. So what should be the motivation of a junior doctor to obtain a PhD degree?
Oh, this is a beautiful question, and it's a shame, because there is no future without research. So if you don't think, okay, let me put it in a very simple way, and this is something that I actually I go around Italy, even discussing with high school students the path of research and why people should enter the research. Research means having ideas and making sure that you can provide advancement compared to what is known, and so we wouldn't have any advancement in whatever field we have in our day-to-day life. Aviation industry, you talk about car industry. Without research, there is no way we can progress. So even medicine, I think it has to go with the advancement that we want to achieve in our field. Of course, you need to have some sort of environment that can trigger or can sustain also your curiosity, because you have to be curious to do research. Otherwise, there is no way you can do research. But if you don't find someone who's really into promoting research or sustaining research, get some time off, take some time off and visit some centers where they do research. You can apply for positions elsewhere, and if that is something that really suits your idea of the future that you envision yourself, you should invest in that.
Okay, another question. Any tips on how to create partnership between PhDs and clinicians?
No, I didn't get this. I'm sorry.
Any tips on how to create partnership between the PhDs and the clinicians?
Well, one thing would be to do some translational research. So, I come from some sort of combined background. So when I was in San Diego, I was just doing basic research, working in the lab, trying to find whatever reason cancer growth in our intestine. Then when I returned to Italy, my idea was to bring this to the patient. So the findings would be something that I would like to apply on at the clinical level. And so this is where a researcher, a PhD, can really relate to clinicians, and it's a mutual thing, because clinicians have a very strong knowledge about the field that they are working on, and PhDs have strong knowledge about the field that they are working on. But I think working in the middle is a win-to-win situation for both parties, in a sense that you get more, working by interacting with the clinician than what the clinician, and again, the clinician can get more by interacting with the PhDs. So one of the things that you can do is brainstorm on papers. You can do like a journal club with the clinician. You can establish that. You can sit down and then you can discuss the papers. Of course, they cannot be completely basic science or completely clinical science, but something that can be in the middle. You can choose within the field that you are working on, and then you start interacting and discussing the results, and then from there you can build on.
Okay. I have another question for me.
Good.
Which is your best paper according to you, and can you tell to the people the story of that paper, the one which you are more in love with?
Okay, there are two papers actually.
And why? So
okay,
please tell the story.
Okay, so the first one is my first paper that I published when I was in San Diego. And that paper, I published that paper in gastroenterology, which was a very important achievement for me. The interesting story behind that is that when I moved to the United States, I was supposed to work on one project, but then my professor was very much interested in exploring possible cause a viral infection leading to colorectal cancer, which then in the end it panned out as a contribution to possibly the expansion of cancer rather than causing the cancer. But he gave me one task, and he said, I'd like to see whether the gastrointestinal tract is a reservoir for the virus, and this is an oncogenic virus. And it was a huge effort for me, because I was working day and night. I was sequencing a lot of data. Keep in mind that when I moved to the United States, I knew how to do PCR, and that's it. And so I teamed up with the technician, I teamed up with the senior researchers working in the lab. And in the end, my curiosity brought me to understand how things would, even the machines would work. I was able to disassemble a complete automated sequencer, one of the first ones, because it broke and I had to find out why it broke. So that was my first paper. Was very important for me, because it was the result of a long work and very hard work, and it was very, very, very nice for me. The second paper actually, it's is my first paper as a senior author, and this was
so it's nice because there are two moments of your
exactly
career.
Exactly, and my postdoc was the first name in the paper, and then I was the last author, and that was exactly a huge achievement because it was with my grants and with my postdoc.
Okay, great. There are two questions more. Can I do part of my PhD at the university work and another one at another university?
It depends if the universities...
I add, is it useful always or not?
I think it's tough. I think it depends if there's I think during the PhD programs, it depends on the PhD programs. You are allowed to go somewhere, you can, but if this is within a collaboration that you have within the research project that you are assigned, I think it's an enrichment. You can see how the other groups are working, and it's always very important to find out how people work in different settings, and you can bring this back and make, your own way of working in the future.
Okay. Yeah, what are the possibilities to fund a PhD? I have to apply by myself or to find a mentor to help me?
I would encourage you to find a mentor to help you in writing grants. Writing grants is not easy. It's not just a matter of having an idea. You have to, the first thing when you write a grant is to carefully look at the call. It depends on the level of grants, of course. There are grants that are like 20,000 euros going up to the millions. But when you have to write a grant, you have to make it very clear that you understand completely what they want to have from the project. And you have to put a lot of effort in it. So you have to work with your mentor in terms, and that helped me a lot because I became sufficiently, or I should say good enough in writing grants. And so, but it takes time. You need to work with your mentor, and then you're ready to write your own.
Okay, there is an experience from Leticia Garcia, which tells that she is a PhD student, works in a hospital in Brazil, even if she's not a doctor, but she works together with clinicians in a chronic disease project. So this crosstalk is very important, and we definitely agree. Another question from my side, very straightforward, which is, please tell us a thing that should never be done during the PhD to have a good career.
Yes.
Apart from being lazy.
No, there is one important thing. Don't chase your data. If you do experiments, don't chase a result. See what happens. Take the data that come out from the results. Discuss the data. Make sure that you understand that the findings are probably disappointing because it's not what you first thought, but that is an important enrichment because then you can build up on negative results or positive results, but don't chase a result that you are expecting.
Okay, how I decide bench research or clinical research as a base for a PhD?
Well, if you talk to me, it's a tricky question because I love working in the lab, in literally working at the bench, and it depends on what you see of yourself in the future. So, are you interested in doing translational research? So, the best thing is to work in the lab because you need to know what the techniques are and how you can get the results and what the technology that you can apply for the results that you want to see at the clinical level. Otherwise, if you think about that, you are interested, for example, in the epidemiology of diseases or prevention of diseases using whatever treatment, I think I would go straight with clinical PhD.
Okay. Another two questions. First, looking back, are you still benefiting from the professional and academic contact that you have made within and outside your field today?
Are you happy?
So the network that you have established in doing your PhD. Now you are still in contact. It was useful or not?
Well, when I was a postdoc, I made a very strong connection with at least 3 researchers, and there's a very strong collaboration still going on. And this is something that, of course, it goes in waves, because you have some common interests, and then you want to keep working on that field. But then in the end, for example, I started working on chemo prevention of hereditary colorectal cancer, and now I have a new network of researchers working together with me who are interested in the same field. But it's very, very important. I think, especially with a couple of them, my relationship is very strong.
Okay. Should one go abroad, but I think that we have already addressed this issue. And should the PhD programs across Europe should be standardized?
That's difficult.
Yeah, that's difficult. Yeah.
It depends on the curriculum, on the requirement. The curriculum that is based on the Ministry of Education.
Okay, perfect. Just another tip to connect better young researchers and young clinicians.
Besides, there are, if you are thinking about working in your field, working in the same, in the same environment. So if you work in the same environment as a clinician, you can propose yourself. You can present the data that you have produced so far. And the same thing can apply to the clinician. Make some sort of joint, you don't need a symposium, but like a 2-hour meeting where you present slides and say, since I'm interested in this pathway, I apply this technology. Then, do you think this technology can fit your
research, basically?
Yeah.
Okay. A question from my side: how to combine the career and all the efforts for the career and being always correct with the colleague, with the keep friend in your environment.
Okay, this is a very important thing.
It's important. It's a very tricky question,
yeah,
but
it goes with the idea. It goes with the idea of leadership. So leadership means that you are good in networking, and at the same time you are not trying to impose yourself all the time, but you listen to others. In projects, one thing that you can do, you can kind of rotate the leadership, and I think it works very well because you are contributing and then you get contributions, and this makes also the network growing even more. And so I think that is something that is very important.
Okay. Great. Let's see if there are other questions. Otherwise, if one has a PhD degree in a certain field, can he participate in scientific projects outside of the field?
Yes, absolutely. There is no restriction, of course.
But
if you can participate,
yeah,
but
is useful?
I don't think it's useful because you are the way you should think of yourself is you do a PhD program because you are following a path, you are following a project, and then my suggestion is that that project is the basis for your future, and you want to build up on that. And if you change the topic, it's going to be very difficult.
So focus on.
You have to be focused. And that is another thing. That is why I don't like the idea of having, the clinical part, the clinical training overlapping with the PhD. Because when you do a PhD program, when you approach research at the early stages, you have to be very focused. You know, the United States are very good in this sense, even the more senior academic career. When you are a researcher, you are assistant professor at the academic institutions, you have a lot of protected time, meaning that the clinical work is going to be like a very small percentage, because you have to really focus on research, you have to focus on writing grants or on writing papers, and of course on enlarging your group of researchers.
Okay, let me see if there are no questions more now. I will ask one question, but let me see. Okay, how can UG support the PhD?
Well, as a matter of fact, there are several ways. First of all, if you write a very good, during your PhD, it all goes with a merit, always. Okay, if you write good papers, then you can get awards for the papers, you can present your work at UG Week. And this is important because once you present your data at UG Week, there will be other young researchers who are interested in your field, and then you can start networking with them right at
also
UG
the editor of top journals.
Yes, and they can be here. So there are several ways, and it goes with of course your ambition, your productivity, and then we sustain the most talented researchers with, for example, the Rising Star Award. We have Travel Grants Award, and so if you have a very good abstract and you submit this, you
get the fellowship research for researchers of the YTG.
Exactly. So there are several ways.
Any advice on what to do if your PhD supervisor is not supportive?
Well, this supportive, it depends on what you mean supportive. If you don't have, I think you always have to be very open with your supervisor. You have to discuss and make sure that he understands that you want to achieve certain goals. I think you have to nourish your supervisor. You have to show the supervisor that you are focused, that you are willing to work with him. But sometimes this doesn't work. So in PhD programs, there are several researchers that are working and that are part of the program, and then you can ask advice from other people who might know the supervisor.
Okay, another question. What is the hardest part of a PhD, creating and conducting experiments or writing up?
Both.
Both. Okay. Okay, let's see if there are other questions. Question from one last question. Okay, I will check if there are no more questions. Otherwise, I will do mine. No more. So I can do my questions.
Okay.
There are a lot of grants
Yes.
available, but I think that there is somehow difficult to find them. What are your advices to search grants? There are some, you can find, some websites or some search engine. I don't know.
Okay, there are.
You have to contact your university.
First of all, yes. Okay. What I did, for example, when I returned from the United States to Italy, I went to the research office, which is actually a directorate of the university, and I started to interact with the people there, and they gave me all the website and of the grant of the institutions that would provide grants, and so of course you have to provide the topic that you are interested for, and I'm sure that at your university there is an office that can provide that information.
Okay.
You can check the European Commission website if you are interested, because there are several levels of grants. You can apply, for example, for a fellowship within the
for young research. Which kind of grant you could have advice to apply?
Mobility grants. If you can use some grants to visit some place and learn from other places how they do research, that's a huge
yeah, but this is just a certain kind of fellowship. I mean, to start an achievement.
Okay, so you go with your national, for example, we have the Italian Association for Cancer Research. The Italian Association for Cancer Research has several levels of grants. You can go from a fellowship program, they will provide 3 years, 1 to 3 years, or you can have an investigator grant, you can have a My First Italian Association for Cancer Research grant. So there are different levels.
First at the nationally.
Yes.
Okay, that's a good advice. And okay, time for one question more. Okay.
Final question.
Yeah, the final question. What is your best mistake in your career of PhD? And in your career of research? Your best mistake?
My best mistake, I have to think about, because there's many mistakes. My best mistake probably was in the design of an animal study. And I learned, not because I then progressed in doing, but it's because you have to put a lot of time reading papers. Meaning that if you want to start, for example, an animal study with a specific animal model, you have to think about that animal model is perfect for the study that you want to for the outcome. And so you have to think, you have to really put a lot of effort in understanding and studying whether that is the right model. And that that was a huge mistake in terms that someone told me, no, read these papers, and after reading the papers, I understood that was completely wrong, and that is a huge lesson for me.
Okay, so thank you to Luigi, and thank you everybody for the questions.